from there, that's how the show started. First, he says, hey, just do what you want to do. Well, my passion was, you ready for this? Motorcycles. So I said, Art, I'm going to do a show on motorcycles. Well, after he quit laughing, he said, well, go for it. Now, you notice I used the word laughing.
Yeah. He didn't believe it.
Well, he didn't. I really think back, I think he figured it would flop. And you know what? It flopped big time. I tried it for a month and a half. And guess what? I had nobody really listen except maybe one or two people. So,
but you look where you're at now. You keep building.
Well, here's the thing. I went then, and me and Art talked. And I started listening to all these internet talk radio shows. Now, this is where people get mad at me.
Here it comes.
I'm going to go back here a couple steps. When I was the general manager of the camera stores, okay, people would come in and they would buy a camera. They knew nothing about even how to use the camera. They would come in 2 or 3 times over a course of a month, and you would teach them, okay, this is how the aperture works. This is how the shutter speed works. This is how you compose a picture, right? Then you don't see them for about another month, and then they come in again, and all of a sudden they say, well, I just shot a wedding. I got another wedding booked for such and such. I'm charging this amount of money for doing a wedding. And I'm going to myself, shit. How can they be doing, even think about doing people's weddings when they don't even know what they're doing? Now, here's where I'm going to get in trouble. If you go on to the internet, okay, and you start listening to all these podcasts and some of these internet radio talk shows. Now, I will say, if you do a podcast, you're lucky, because you know what? If you screw up, say something you didn't supposed to say, or you didn't like how the show sounded, you can go back and edit it, cut it out, or you do whatever you want to do to fix it before you publish it and it goes on the air. Now, when you do a live broadcast, like what you're doing tonight, James, and Michael, what you do and what I do, well, if you say the wrong word or you say something or, or whatever, you screw up, right? It goes over. You can't change it.
Nope.
And then even all your apps that replay your show, they're on there. So you have to live with whatever you say. Now, what really, I worked hard, okay, to become a broadcaster. I worked hard to work on some of the top stations in the Seattle-Tacoma area and a few other locations in the country in my life. And what really astounds me is some of these people will create a talk show or a so-called network on the internet, right? And make it sound like they're a radio station, number one. Well, people, to become and own a radio station or start one or even buy one, there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of research. There's a lot, especially if you're going to build one, a lot of stuff for emissions. I mean, right down the line, you got to do before you even get considered to get a license, and a lot of money. And I take it as a long-time broadcaster, it's an insult when you have people using fake call letters, like KBC, whatever, 107 talk radio on the internet. To me, they're stealing something, okay? And that really, really upsets me. The other is when they do a talk show, I don't care if it's horse racing or the paranormal or about music or I don't care what. You know what? If they don't know what they're talking about, they shouldn't have a show. They shouldn't.
Yep.
And
that's important to know what you're talking about, that's for sure.
And if they don't want to invest more than $15 for a microphone, okay, and sound somewhat professional, they shouldn't even do it. So now you have all these talk shows on, and it's really, right now, it's thousands and thousands on the internet, right? And Facebook Live, okay? All of a sudden, they get on Facebook Live and they think they're a famous star right off the bat. They're behind their camera, right? And they're trying to act like a talk show host. And they don't know what the frick they're talking about. They can't even carry a conversation. I was watching a Facebook Live last night where a lady, and I'm a big guy, she was probably big as me, right? While she was doing her Facebook Live, was guzzling soda down like you wouldn't believe, and probably putting a pork chop in her mouth in between asking her guest questions.
Gary, I wish you would tell us what you really think. I really do.
Well, Michael? Aren't I being honest?
This is one long rant here. I love it.
Well, if you're gonna do a internet talk show, I'm all for it. But talk about something you know about. Get guests on that knows what they're talking about. Okay. And, if you're going to bring a guest on who is a investigative reporter, I don't consider somebody an investigative reporter like I was talking to another host about last week. Is somebody who reads the newspaper or goes on the internet and reads stuff about Bigfoot, and all of a sudden they're an expert on Bigfoot because they read it on the internet, and now they're an investigative reporter. Come on, people. Okay? And you know what? If you're going to get on and do Facebook Live, at least put a clean shirt on, and don't sit on a couch and wash your hair and shave, and also make sure your wife doesn't walk by with that Budweiser beer while you're doing your show.
That's crazy. Oh boy, that sounds more like Married with Children.
I don't know, but I mean, I feel, it's great. If you want to do a show like that and have maybe 15 to 30 listeners or viewers, I guess go for it if that's your whole thing. Now, people have asked me, like, wow, in this short a period of time, why do you have the listenership you have? Well, I can tell you only one thing, okay? The one thing is because I do my show like when I used to do radio. Everything kind of flows unless I hit the wrong button, as you notice once in a while. But, from the beginning of the show, the bumper music to the commercial to, how I talk and everything, it all kind of flows together. Okay? I take the time to do it.
Yeah, you do put a lot of time in. I know that personally.
So there.
And you take it serious.
Well, I have to. I'm not going to do something half-ass. And,
right.
If you come on and you want to, you wrote a book, right? You'll send me a copy of your book. I'll read the beginning of your book. I'll read the middle of your book. And I'll read the end of the book. And then I'm going to ask you questions. Now, if you, as a guest, want to come on my show and I agree to have you on, all of a sudden, if you start sending me all this stuff saying, these are the questions I want you to ask me, well, I'm not going to do that.
I'm glad, because that script stuff just don't go. It don't flow.
I had one person, and Michael knows who I'm probably going to talk about, one person who scripted a 2-hour show. Wasn't so bad to when I went on YouTube and looked the guy up and started watching his presentations on YouTube in front of people. And it was 100% match to what he said on my show, right down to the crying part.
Yeah, I think I know the one you're talking about too.
So
that's crazy.
So at that point, I don't do a scripted show. I also will not stick to a routine. If you're talking about the paranormal of ghost hunting, I'm going to try to get a little bit of information about you personally, to get the listeners to get involved in you. So I will talk about some other little things during the whole conversation to keep it going. Just like if you came to my house, right, and we sat down on the couch and we just talked for a couple hours of bullshitting, getting to know each other and talking and swapping stories. That's how I interview.
Right. And people, they know you can't fool people, your audience, your listeners. They know your conviction and your passion, and it comes out, and that's why your listeners grow, because that is more convincing and more likable than a script or whatever.
Well, I think so. And that people, this is why I have Michael Hall on my network. I mean, he is just like me. He likes talking, don't you, Michael? And
I do.
And he likes doing it as a hobby, and it's a passion. I noticed you a long time ago, James, on Facebook Live. You like doing the same thing. You like talking to people and asking questions. And I figured both of you guys would be a great match on this network.
And I appreciate the opportunity, and I love it. I take it serious and with a passion.
And it will take a while for you, just like Michael. It was a learning curve. It'll take you a couple shows, and all of a sudden, like the guest not showing up, you'll know what to do, and it'll kind of start flowing, like just like anything else. It'll become second nature to you.
Yep. Yes, it will. And we're winding down now, so we've got a couple minutes left. Get any final words in the last minute here before I sign off and move on?
Well, James, I just want to congratulate you on surviving your first major radio production tonight. You did a wonderful job, buddy.
Well, there was some tests and trials and errors I went through, but I'm still here, and I didn't lose my head anxiety-wise, so that's a good thing.
Well, have you been wiping the sweat off of your brow?
It's just flowing like a river.
Oh, yeah. Well, don't let it worry you, because you know what? It can happen. And, it has happened to me numerous times. A guest all of a sudden, forgets they're going to be on the show. I make a point of calling my guests an hour before I do the show, just to make sure they're going to be there. And, even doing that sometimes, all of a sudden, I don't know what it is. Maybe they get scared at the last moment. But then all of a sudden, they're not there when you go to bring them on.
I called him before, and everything was good, and some kind of technical difficulties. I don't know what it was. Hopefully we can work it out and maybe have him on next week.
Oh, yeah. And, Michael, do you have anything else? We got like 2 minutes left to kill.
Oh, I'm just real pleased as punch to have James on the network and be able to fill up some of his, or fill the show with some of his knowledge in the paranormal and the spiritual and those kinds of things. That's exactly what we need on the network as well. So I'm kind of into the UFOs and, the nuts and bolts and some of the woo-woo, but, we need a little well-rounded network here, and that's what he'll bring, I'm sure.
Oh, man, I'm happy as can be and appreciate the opportunity, and I am tickled to be here. And, hey, while you're on here, Michael, why don't you tell the people about your show coming up at, 10 p.m. Eastern Time?
Yeah, actually, it's we've got an hour break between yours and mine, and then 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be on for another hour myself. I'm talking with Olaf Phillips tonight. Pretty famous ufologist and cryptozoologist. So we're going to have a fun paranormal show for an hour at about 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
So don't miss that, everybody. And hey, Gary?
Yes.
Don't you have a little show going on during the week? You want to say something about that on www.nightdreamstalkradio.com?
Well, yeah. I want you guys to listen to my show. Tell everybody about Night Dreams Talk Radio. Not just my show, James' show, Michael's show, and then pretty soon we're going to have another host on who's going to be talking about horror movies and trivia, and all that stuff will be on too, like twice a month. So the network is growing. It's going to be fun. And all I can say as the owner of the network, I'm glad I have all you guys aboard.
And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be part of the team.
So, people, I want you to tune in to James' show every single Saturday and, give them the support and listen and tell your friends to go to www.nightdreamstalkradio.com and also, to help pay for this bandwidth. Okay. And we're even expanding to another off-site server as of Monday. You can donate $1 or $2 to help, defer some of the cost